Welcome back, or welcome if you're just joining us. It's the France 24 debate. We're looking at Rodrigo Duterte's visit to China amid what some believe could be a pivot away from the United States. We're talking about it with Epimaco Densing of the Interior Ministry of the Philippines, who joins us from Manila. Joining us here in the studio, Reynaldo Cruz de Castro, who chairs the China Studies Department at Manila's De La Salle University. Renway Hwang, Vice President of the Shanghai Academy of Social Sciences. And from Washington, Jonah Blank, Senior Political Scientist at the RAND Corporation. Just before the break, we were talking about how they're putting this dispute on the back burner over the South China Sea, and we could see this pivot away from the United States. Epimaco Densing, let me ask you, do you think, because we're still seeing joint naval maneuvers and patrols between the United States and the Philippines, are those really going to stop?
No, in my opinion, it will continue. As I mentioned, although the president made several pronouncements, it's more of a message to our friends from the United States, telling them that we intend, or our country intends to have an independent foreign policy, not based on a mendicant environment. We've been having that foreign policy for the last 30 years, close to mendicancy, and the message to our president is to simply say, if we want to continue our relationship, it would be at the same level, not one big brother, small brother relationship, but we're looking eye to eye and we're holding hands together at the same level. That's a simple message.
Big brother, small brother. That's an important point, because oftentimes we hear Duterte allude to the fact that the U.S. is a former colonial power. How deep is the resentment?
Correct. Well, the resentment has been there even when we're still young, no? As early as 30 years ago, when the new government came into power after the Marcos dictatorship, it has continued over the years. And we have a new president who wants us to be independent from them. And again, it's very clear that the foreign policy that we'd like to tell the world is that we want to sit down at the same level as you are. Whether we're a third world country and you're a first world country, we have to sit down and talk at the same level. And that's the message of the president.
How much of this is about the reprimand that Duterte has gotten from not just the United States over the summary executions of some 3,500 people in that war on drugs?
Well, in the first place, you have to be clear with the numbers. I've seen the numbers. When we talk about the war on drugs, the difference mainly is how it is being implemented. For instance, if you talk about the first 6 months of 2016, during the time of the last 6 months of the Aquino presidency, they only have close to 500 police operations on drugs every month. So we're talking about 3,000 police operations from January to June 30. It has only created 4,000 arrests and deaths of around close to 250. From the time that President Duterte came into power, since July, there has been close to 10,000 police operations a month on drug operations. Yeah, but we're talking about
we had a president who earlier this week told Al Jazeera he doesn't give a about human rights.
Well, the president was very clear in his inaugural speech. He's a lawyer. He understands that. But if you understand our president, he talks in hyperboles. When he says that, it means that he wants to uphold more the rights of the innocent than those who commit the crimes. And it's part of his policy is really human rights. In fact, we've been given an order to make an independent probe in the interior level on the level or massiveness of human rights violations in these police operations. We may be able to put out the report in the next 10 days. And so far, it's an issue of whether it's massive or not. We understand how human rights work. And it's very clear to us that when the president speaks something hyperbolic, we should not put it in a very clear sense. It's like a CEO. If you're a CEO, you say, I want to sell $1 billion in sales. It doesn't mean that you will hit $1 billion, but the point there is you have to hit the highest level. When the president
Reynaldo,
says, let's eradicate illegal drugs, it means put it in the barest minimum.
All right, Reynaldo Cruz de Castro, I mean, there's a bit of mirth when we hear a president use curse words, but is rule of law being undermined in the Philippines?
Well, that's allegation. There's also he's very sensitive about that allegation that there are extrajudicial killings. Which accounts for the fact that he has this reaction vis-a-vis the United States. Before he was criticized by the United States for human rights violations, his policy was basically business as usual. So this notion of having an independent foreign policy is actually a reaction to the criticism he got from the United States and from the European Union, and of course from the West. So we have to contextualize, whether they're really a human rights violation or not. I think President Duterte made an effort to ask the EU, the United States, to send a probe to investigate whether there are actually extrajudicial killings happening in the Philippines. So I would say the jury is still out there.
The jury's still out, Jonah Blank?
Yes, well, I think Reynaldo made a very good point that this prickliness towards the U.S. and the West did not come from a true policy shift. It came from the personal pique of President Duterte. It wasn't until he was, or he felt insulted, that he responded in this hyperbolic way. And let's remember, this is a pretty much omnidirectional hyperbole. This is a president who called the Pope himself sorry for the language, a son of a whore, merely because of a traffic tie-up. I think that we really should not read policy into what is often merely hyperbole.
What about the extrajudicial killings? Are those for real?
According to a wide variety of international human rights organizations, they are. And Duterte himself has essentially admitted this on a number of occasions.
All right. After that son of a whore remark.
Excuse me. Can I correct
Go ahead.
Can I correct that? I don't think there's on two occasions there's no extrajudicial killings in the Philippines on both local and foreign definition. In the investigation that we're doing, we're calling it extra legal killings. First of all, we already have.
But that's semantics, isn't it? I mean, there are people who've lost their loved ones through this.
No, not necessarily, because remember, in basic and human rights the state has to uphold life, liberty, and security of person. The state also has the right to make a fair trial. However, the president is very clear on this. If the suspect attempts to kill the law enforcer in the enforcement of law, and it jeopardizes the life of the enforcer.
So there's been 3,500 resisting arrest?
No. It's not 3,500. It's only 1,600.
All right, 1,600 resisting arrest.
The 2,200 is deaths under investigation. And the 2,200, only 30% of that is drug-related. The balance of 70% is not even related to drug operations. It's just part of the operations. The 1,600 who died are those who resisted arrest in a legitimate police operations. And mind you, of the 1,600 as of today, there's already close to 30,000 arrests. So if you look at the numbers, it's almost the same, 5%. It's just the number of operations right now is 10 times higher than the first 6 months of this year. So there's really a clear indication that we really want to bring down the drug menace in the country. And please look at the perspective. The war on drugs in the Philippines is seen not only of a law enforcement issue. There's also a soft side. As early as July 15, the president has already ordered us to put in the drug rehabilitation program, both the community-based and the long-term. So we're putting in several drug rehabilitation centers. The first one, a 10,000 patient facility, will be put up by the 15th of November by the donation of a private sector. And we are now addressing the 90% of the 700 drug surrenders, into a community-based rehab program. So there's a soft side. So this is a comprehensive war on drugs. It's not just an issue of law enforcement. There's a soft side to it.
Let's remember, however, that President Duterte publicly said he would like to kill 3 million drug addicts. Now, that was almost certainly hyperbole, but he hasn't exactly tried to ramp down the perception that he is quite comfortable with a much, much more hard-edged approach.
Let's listen to the U.S. reaction to that. After a son of a whore remark directed at Barack Obama and a canceled ASEAN summit meeting, here's what the U.S. president at the time had to say.
We want to partner with the Philippines on the particular issue of narco-traffickers, which is a serious problem in the Philippines. It's a serious problem in the United States and around the world. On that narrow issue, we do want to make sure that the partnership we have is consistent with international norms and rule of law.
Reynaldo Cruz de Castro, any objections?
Well, I think that's that's basically the nature. It's the rule of law. You know, whether you have this extrajudicial killings happening, you know, it has to be subjected to investigation. And you know, my point is, President Duterte already opened the door for international observers to come. So let's take it at based on what he said.
Renway Hwang, your thoughts on this? And
I think this is the domestic affairs of Philippines, and the U.S. could not interfere so deeply. And
you think Obama's gone over the line when he says that?
Yes, I think U.S. should reflect its policy. Why? You see, recently some alliance of U.S. has happened the same phenomenon like Philippines, like Turkey, like Saudi Arabia. So it's not only Philippine problem caused by the new president. It's also some kind of reaction to U.S. policy.